Midweek Pictorial, June 10th, 1920. Boston policemen hurling bottles of whiskey against the wall of their station. The whiskey had been seized in a raid and had to be destroyed. The distress of mind that this may have occasioned to bibulous onlookers and possibly to some of the guardians of the law themselves was not allowed to stand in the path of duty. Targets were drawn on the wall, and competition was keen to make the most accurate shots. Veterans of the old New York Zouaves marching in the Memorial Day Parade on Riverside Drive, New York City. Only 16 of the famous regiment that went away in 1861 as the 2nd Duryea Zouaves filed by in the picturesque red pantaloons and fez. Dwindling ranks of the old fighters who upheld the Union in the trying days of 1861 to 1865 as they appeared on Michigan Avenue, Chicago on Memorial Day. They were members of GAR Grant Post 28. The ranks were thin, but the old spirit was there, as strong as ever. In the week ending May 29, 1920, 8,275 aliens arrived at the port of New York, and 2,863 more were on the seas nearing the harbor. As many disembark also at Boston and other Atlantic ports, it can be seen that the tide of immigration is in full swing. The news of the large wages paid for manual labor in this country has gone abroad and is attracting a multitude of newcomers. The impetus is increased by the hard conditions of life in most of the countries of Europe that are trying to recover from the effects of the war. They see nothing in their own country but a strenuous struggle for existence, and the impulse is strong to better their condition by coming to America. It is interesting to note that while for a long time past there has been a great volume of departures from this country, these departures are now almost offset by the incoming host of immigrants. If the present movement continues, the inward flow will soon be the greater. Tests are being rigorously applied, and only those who give promise of becoming desirable citizens are admitted. Photo caption: Ellis Island, the gateway through which immigrants coming into New York Harbor have to pass in order to be admitted to this country. The administrative building is shown, together with the hospital, laundry, and other structures necessary for the conduct of the work. The island is located a short distance out in New York Bay, within full sight of the statue of the Goddess of Liberty. Physical and mental examinations are conducted there before the immigrant can enter the country. Line of immigrants waiting their turn at the doorway of the examination building to submit to the tests they must meet before they can be admitted to the United States. They are arriving in New York Harbor at the rate of from 8,000 to 10,000 a week, and the immigration officials find their facilities heavily taxed to take care of them. Immigrants who have successfully passed the examination by immigration officials, landing at the Battery, New York, from the steamer that plies between the city and Ellis Island. All are heavily laden with hand baggage, and in some cases with trunks. Seen in the steerage of one of the ocean steamships that are just now coming to this country with many immigrants from various European countries. Steerage conditions have greatly improved compared to what they were a few years ago. Group of sturdy little Dutch children on the steamship Rotterdam that arrived in New York May 30th, carrying 1,000 immigrants. The children are scrupulously clean and are good material for future citizens. The literacy test, to which all incoming aliens are submitted before they are allowed to enter the United States. The immigrant must be able to read at least 20 words in some language. If he cannot do this, he is sent back. The literacy test has been objected to in some quarters, because it is alleged that a man may be a very desirable and steady worker even if he cannot read or write. The bulk of opinion, however, favors the law, and it is rigidly applied. Immigrants coming ashore at the Battery, New York, after having met all the tests, physical and mental, to which they have been required to submit. In many cases, all their worldly belongings, outside of the money they possess, are carried in their hands. immigrants by the hundreds waiting their turns to be examined at Ellis Island. These examinations are rigid, and none are exempt. A special care is taken that no one with contagious disease be permitted to enter the country. The most common afflictions are those of the eye and scalp. Then, too, the intending resident must prove that he has sufficient money to assure that neither he nor his family shall become dependents. Decks of steamship coming up the harbor of New York crowded with the immigrants, who are excited and alert at the prospect of landing on the shores of the new country. Baggage has been packed, so that all shall be in readiness to disembark when land is reached. Types of immigrants who have begun to come to this country in a steady stream during the last few months. They represent all nations. Very few are coming from Russia, however, owing to the difficulty of getting passports and transportation. Immigrants having their eyes examined for symptoms of contagious disease. If any are discovered, it means that the person in question will be sent back to the country from which he or she came. Italian girl having her passport examined by immigration official. These are scrutinized with care, especially with a view to not permitting those of bad character or record to enter the country. Ireland still continues to be a smoldering volcano that at any moment may burst in eruption. Arson and killings are of almost daily occurrence. These incidents of revolt are committed with the greater impunity because the participants, even if arrested, are almost certain to escape conviction. The jury is either in sympathy with the defendants or fears the consequences if they should convict. In a recent summons for jury duty, in case of a policeman killed at Kilmallock, only 4 out of 14 called responded to the summons. Photo caption: ruined barracks in the little town of Newton Hamilton, situated in South Armagh, 14 miles from Armagh City and 11 miles from Newry. The barracks sustained a severe attack early in May from a party of Sinn Féiners numbering about 300. The police force only consisted of 5 men, but they defended themselves bravely against the heavy odds. The assailants finally withdrew after having practically demolished the building. Hardly a day passes without a similar attack being registered in the news, and the outlook could not well be worse for the governing authorities. Seen in court during a London murder trial growing out of the Irish insurrectionary movement. The prisoner, Madden, marked with an X, is intently watching one of the witnesses testifying in the case. The court was closely guarded to prevent any hostile demonstration. Funeral in Tipperary, Ireland of Sergeant Brady of the Constabulary, who was shot dead in one of the revolutionary disturbances in that county. The hearse was guarded by armed officers who walked beside and behind it with rifles in their hands, to guard against any untoward incident. The funeral took place May 12th. The sergeant was only one of a long and increasing list of officers who have been killed in the disorders that extend all over Ireland. Burned out Mill Quarter Police Barracks near Tuam, County Antrim, Ireland, after being raided and set on fire by a party of masked raiders May 4th, 1920. Villagers were pressed into service to bring oil and combustibles to hasten the work of destruction. The place was thoroughly gutted. Furniture and other contents of the building are shown piled up in the yard of the barracks. Some of the outnumbered defenders of the barracks at Newton Hamilton. Raids and fires, with police barracks as the special objective, have grown so seriously that increasing forces are being sent by the British government to reinforce the 50,000 already there. Red infantry lined up for review in Moscow, the capital of the Soviet government. The uniforms are motley, as will be noted. The latest reports from Russia indicate that Trotsky has stepped aside from the conduct of military affairs in favor of Brusilov. Troops of the Red Army leaving Moscow for the Polish front, where hard fighting has been going on for several weeks past. In the ranks are women volunteers in civilian dress, who have elected to fight in the ranks alongside their masculine comrades. Germans in Russia who have enlisted in the ranks of the Red Army. They were taken prisoner during the World War, and for some reason do not wish to return to Germany. Over them is a banner that reads, "Long live the World Revolution." Danish troops entering Hadesleben in North Schleswig, May 5, 1920, amid the acclamations of the people. The province has been rejoined to Denmark, from which it had been torn by Germany more than 50 years before. The Sirena, a motorcar boat in operation at Atlantic City, New Jersey. It is a fully equipped automobile, which can travel 60 miles an hour on land. It is capable of being transformed into a motorboat by transferring the power from the wheels to a propeller, by means of which the hybrid craft can make 20 knots an hour on water. Unusual launching of the city of Weatherford, a 10,000-ton steamer, at the plant of the Pensacola Shipbuilding Company at Pensacola, Florida. The steamer was sent sideways into the water, a method that has sometimes been adopted for lack of space to launch in the regular way. She was 96% complete. The launching took place without accident. Huge airplane Giant, said to be the largest that has ever been built in the United States, as it appeared at Mitchell Field, Long Island, just before beginning its trial flight. The machine is well named, for it is gigantic in its dimensions. It is 106 feet wide from wingtip to tip, and has 2 fuselages, or bodies, each 50 feet long, and a large nacelle in the center, capable of accommodating a crew of 4 men. Every appliance is of the most approved type. Closer view of the Giant, with members of her crew adjusting the equipment. The great machine was designed and built at the LWF Engineering Company's plant at College Point, Long Island, and has been receiving its final tests prior to turning it over to the United States government, at whose order it was built. It is a biplane equipped with 3 12-cylinder Liberty motors, with a total of 1,200 horsepower. The Giant soaring in the air in its trial flight at Mitchell Field, Long Island, before being accepted by the government, by whom it is to be used as a bombing plane. It can remain in the air 16 hours, and maintain a speed of 110 miles an hour. It will carry 7,776 pounds of useful load. The bombing planes demonstrated their value during the late war, and gradually replaced the dirigible balloons that at first had been employed for such work. They are speedy, capacious, and hard to hit. Survivors of the transport President Lincoln that was torpedoed by a submarine May 31st, 1918, dropping memorial wreaths overboard in New York Bay in honor of their comrades who perished on that occasion. Dead body of former Mexican President Venustiano Carranza, who was shot by some of the troops who accompanied him in his flight from the capital. He is here shown lying at Villa Juarez, his body covered by Mexican flag. At head are 1. FDP Mariel, 2. Juan Barragan, and 3. Federico Montes. Impressive funeral ceremonies of the late Crown Princess of Sweden. Behind the cortege is walking the Crown Prince and his children. The Crown Princess was the Princess Margaret Victoria, daughter of Prince Arthur, Duke of Connaught. She was born January 15, 1882, and married June 15, 1905. Shooting of 1 Frenchwoman, Madame Aubert, and 3 Frenchmen, Tocque, Lemoine, and Herbert, who were tried and convicted as traitors. The execution took place May 16th in the grove surrounding the prison of Vincennes, in the outskirts of Paris. The prisoners are shown tied to posts while the firing squads are doing their work. They had been given a fair trial, and the evidence was overwhelming that during the occupation of Laon by the Germans, they had betrayed their countrymen to the enemy. Scene of collision on the Erie Railroad, May 30th. A passenger train was pulling out of the Jersey City terminal when, at Grove Street, it was sideswiped by a Susquehanna train. The latter had jumped a switch which was kept open by a piece of rubber hose. No passengers were hurt, but the engineer was injured seriously. Firemen fighting a blaze aboard the steamship Powhatan in dry dock at the Morse Yards, South Brooklyn, New York, June 1st. 4 workmen were trapped in the hold of the vessel and would have perished had it not been for their companions on the dock who burned holes in the vessel's sides with acetylene torches. Turkish peace delegates at Versailles to receive the terms of the Turkish treaty. Attorney General Palmer, foreground right, testifying before the House Rules Committee in Washington and declaring that Louis F. Post was in sympathy with anarchists. General Pershing and Rear Admiral Oman, U.S. Navy, Governor of the Virgin Islands, at the home of the latter at Charlotte Amelia, the chief city of the islands, which were bought from Denmark by the United States. Eugene Debs shown in prison at Atlanta Penitentiary, Georgia, holding a bouquet that had been given to him by a delegation of friends which called May 29th to notify him of his nomination for President of the United States by the Socialist Party. He is serving a 10-year sentence for violation of espionage law. Crown Prince of Japan proceeding to the mausoleum of former Emperor Meiji to announce the attainment of his majority. This is in accordance with traditional custom. The Crown Prince is taking an increasing part in the affairs of government and receives the foreign ministers when they present their credentials. The battleship Renown that has been used by the Prince of Wales in all his recent journeyings arriving at Auckland, New Zealand, after a trip that involved stops at Panama and Hawaii. Harborcraft swarmed about the ship in enthusiastic welcome. The Pope is here seen officiating at the impressive ceremonies in St. Peter's at Rome, May 16, 1920, when Joan of Arc was canonized. It was an occasion of great solemnity and splendor. Blessing the crops in Hampshire at Binstead Hants, England, on Rogation Day. This is an annual ceremony. The vicar, with the church choir, marches through the village, blessing the crops and praying for a bountiful harvest. The custom is one of great antiquity. Great congregation attending the special pontifical mass celebrated in Westminster Cathedral, London, in honor of the canonization of Joan of Arc, May 16, 1920. After the ceremony, a pageant took place, and a great throng headed by a band and with a girl representing Joan of Arc in shining armor made its way through the streets. The new flag of the Polish Republic being blessed with appropriate ceremonies at Birkenthal in Upper Silesia. This is one of the districts where the Polish population is very large, and where voting is soon to occur on the question whether Upper Silesia shall be joined to Poland or remain under the sovereignty of Germany.